I had a very high voice. My body was very female. By the time I started hormones, I was 18.
Deciding to go for the surgery and how it was with the UK, like NHS, things like that.
So the start of my in the UK with the NHS, you have to go to therapy before you can have any sort of medical intervention, which I think is fair enough. And I think it helps support trans people, because then people can't turn around and be like, oh, well, you're just doing this because it's a phase or something, because you have a literal diagnosis from someone in the medical field. So when I was I want to say 16, I was referred from my GP to like a gender specialist therapy service that was in Leeds. So I had an appointment every like 2 months or something, and me and my parents would go, and they would talk to me and my parents together, and then they would talk to just me, and then they talked to just my parents. And by the end of it, basically they just said, they gave me a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which is the mismatch between your brain and your body, or your brain and your identity, that obviously includes your outwards appearance as well. And then with that diagnosis, I could have medical intervention. So I knew that I wanted to start hormones, and I knew, because I had a very high voice and my body was very like female. Like I had,
because it's 16, isn't females go through puberty slightly earlier?
Yeah, so
you would have been near the end of puberty, right?
By the time I started hormones, I was 18. I'd finished. Was I 18? I was 18. I was done with puberty.
Yeah.
And honestly, as shit as it was going through puberty, I mean, it's shit for anyone going through puberty, but as hard as that was, I'm glad I went through it, because I knew who I was, because I knew that puberty wasn't the puberty I should have gone through. Wow. Like every change that came with puberty, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. This is not what should be changing.
It's like Fortnite updates that happen. Like, I don't want this update. Can we just like relax, guys? But your body, that must have been so hard. Yeah. Changes in your body happening that consciously you don't associate with your personality, your way of living. Like, wow.
Yeah. So one of the options before you go on hormones is that you take something called puberty blockers, which I'm not a doctor. I don't know the science behind it, but basically it blocks whatever hormone your puberty produces. So testosterone or estrogen. And basically, if you're a young kid who has been diagnosed to a service like this, that's the only medical intervention that they can give you to start with. And the good thing with it is, as soon as you stop taking it, your body kicks back in. It's completely a temporary thing. So a lot of young people, when they are questioning their identity, like before puberty or as they're starting to go through it, choose to take this medication, and it stops puberty from happening. And again, if one day they're just like, actually, no, I am this gender, you just stop taking it. And it continues. However, for me, I was done with puberty by the time I'd got to that stage. So
you were ready to get this shit on the roll. Yeah.
So I also knew that I wanted at least the possibility of having biological children. And if you start testosterone, it can make you infertile. But if it doesn't, when it comes to wanting biological children, you have to stop taking testosterone for a certain period of time
to be able to,
so that your body can revert back to like the menstrual cycle and stuff like that, so that you can do that. And I knew, I mean, periods and stuff like that for me were horrendous anyway, like from a mental aspect. So I knew that there was no chance in hell that I would want to do that. But I wanted at least a chance of having a biological child. So I went through the egg freezing procedure. So I started that in January of 2020. So the end of 2020, just after COVID. Luckily, I was fortunate that my process was all covered by the NHS, which I don't know why it was, because it's not normally. And by this time I was 18, so it wasn't that I was under 18, but I'm not complaining, because fertility procedures are like really expensive. So
for sure. I mean, so with you going through that, how I'm just trying to get clear with so you've frozen your eggs, so then later on in life, if you wanted to have biological children, you can. So and that would be through
it would essentially be like surrogacy, in the sense that my eggs would be what's the word? Would be
like the way they do it in the lab.
Yeah, it's like IVF. So my eggs would be fertilized. That's the word. Fertilized with a sperm donor. And then they would be put into my partner.
Wow.
So technically, my partner would be like a surrogate for my child, but obviously, if we're together, then it would just be like if you and your partner couldn't have kids for some reason, it would just be like if that was to happen for you guys.
That's really good that you have that opportunity. By the sounds of it, not a lot of people get that.
I think it's difficult for people to choose to do it because it's a very invasive procedure, and I don't regret going through it. Would I do it again? Absolutely not. Like, for 3 or 4 months before the actual procedure, I had to inject myself with hormones every day that like get everything inside ready. But I was living at that time as a guy. I was completely out socially to everyone, but every day I was actively injecting female hormones into myself, and it was almost like, I know that this is going to sound so dramatic, but it was like conversion therapy. It was like, okay, mentally I know who I am. Everyone else now knows who I am. Let's inject female hormones into myself every single day. That, like, mentally it was really difficult for me. And again, like, the whole like menstrual cycle was emotionally hard for me anyway, and I was actively having to like induce that. So
any girl that complains about a period to you, you must be like, what the fuck, man? You want to see what I've been through.
And then the actual procedure itself was traumatic. Like, I mean, you're not put to sleep, but you're sedated. And I know that when you're sedated, like, your emotions are all over the place anyway. But I just remember for 2 hours just crying the entire time the procedure was happening. But I also now, I think, one, because I was sedated, I don't really remember it. But two, I think my brain just doesn't let me remember it. Like, it was so emotionally traumatic that I've just like completely put it out of my brain.